So, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome along. I am so excited to be back for September. The start of term has officially been crazy for us here, and I'm sure it has for you. But this is our opportunity to get some inspiration, to have a few minutes where we think about that big picture. We think about why we do what we do. So we're going to get excited and get inspired with Sally Hamerton, which is absolute pleasure and delight. Sally, I am sure you already know, is the Primary School Librarian of the Year 2023. It was brilliant to crowd it. Yes, clapping there. And Yvonne as well has joined us, which is fantastic. Yvonne is from Authors Abroad, who are the amazing sponsors of that award. I love our awards for the opportunity it gives us to showcase what you all do. It's about celebrating the impact that school libraries have on students, the books that we can see behind Sally, you know, that form the basis of what you do, and all of the other offer in your service that you give. So this afternoon, the plan is to hear from Sally all about what she does, some things that she's tried and tested with her students, things that help her, things that get her library out there. We'll also then hear about Yvonne and Authors Abroad, why they got involved in Primary School Librarian of the Year Award and what they see as the benefits of that. And then, as always, you can ask your questions in the chat. If you want to ask Sally or Yvonne anything at all, then pop those in there. I can field it and then we can answer them at the end if that's okay. So I should have said I'm Helen Emery from the School Library Association. So I'm in the office here hosting. So any practical issues, again, just maybe private message me in the chat and I can help you out. So without further ado, I am going to pass over to Sally. I will just spotlight you as the star that you are. And yeah, we'd love to hear about everything you've got prepared for us this afternoon. Thank you, Sally.
Hi, thanks, Helen. First of all, can I say what a privilege it is to be here today talking to everyone, because you're all doing such impactful work. So to be kind of singled out to be the one to talk to you is a real privilege. I'll give you a little rundown about our school, what we're like. We are a three-form intake primary in East Bristol, with higher than average numbers of children on pupil premium, free school meals, and EAL children as well. And when I was brought into school, it was obviously to work with all the children in school, but with a particular focus on our PP children. Any extra interventions and things were with our PP children. Yeah, so I'm just going to talk, I've kind of broken my talk down into three sections. So the things that we've tried over the last few years with the children with regards to library that I found have worked particularly well. Things that I do for my well-being and to make the job easier for me, and things to raise the library profile both within the school and beyond. So we've got 21 classes and each class visits the library on a weekly basis. So reception, so early years and year one come up for a 20-minute, half an hour story time each week. And they don't borrow books from the library, but they have a love books box in the classroom and they can choose books and borrow them from the classroom. From year 2 to year 6, those children are coming up every week to borrow library books. The older children have a 45-minute slot. The younger ones have a 30-minute slot. And we'll start with a book chat. We'll always talk about what we've read, what we want to recommend. And I know that as soon as I say what I've read, there'll be a waiting list for that book. In fact, it happened this morning. I was just saying to Helen, we had our first class in this morning of the school year. And as soon as the class teacher said the book that he'd read over the holidays, somebody else has borrowed it. So that's great. It does work. They do need to see us as readers. So yeah, all 21 classes are coming in. And I'm sure if you're seeing every class in your school, it's such a privilege. It's one of the few roles in school that the children get to see you every week and you get to see every child in the school every week. There aren't really many roles in school where an individual has that contact with every child. And I think that's a real privilege. So I have made lots of notes and I don't know that I'm going to go through them all. I'm going to go straight in with my things that work well with our children in schools. So as I said, we've got higher than average numbers of pupil premium children, and we make a point of offering every pupil premium child a book of their own every half term, and we put a book plate in it so it's named, they can take it home. So by the end of their 6th year, or by the end of year 6, they've then got 42 books of their own mini library of named books. And in that selection, I give them a choice. They'll have usually a non-fiction, there'll be a graphic novel, there'll be something longer, something shorter, something funny, and depending on the cohort, maybe sporty books, or if I know they're into animals, there'll be something animally. I know lots of schools that do provide books for pupil premium children sign up for kind of subscription boxes from different companies, but I feel by doing it this way, we are tailoring it to our children. So it means I have to know every single child, and it means I have to know every single book. And that's fine, that's great. So they come in and they choose their book, we glue a nameplate in, and away they go, and that's every half term. And it's just a lovely, lovely thing. So those children that may have no or very few books at home, they are being exposed to new authors, new genres. And it might be, for example, say they've done Varjak-Poor as a class book, I might offer the second Varjak-Poor book as one of the books that they can keep so that they can carry on the story. Or if we've had an author in, for example, we had Stuart Foster in a year or so, almost a year ago, and we made a point of every pupil premium child had his latest book, and he signed them all, he dedicated them. So they didn't get a choice then, but they all got the chance to meet the author, which was really special. Also for our pupil premium children, we offer a thing on a Friday morning called Books at Breakfast. It's currently year 6s. Then after Easter, we'll probably change that to year 5. The children come in at 8, and I'm here, and we all have breakfast together. So it's boosting attendance, and it's boosting the fact that they're well fed and ready for the day ahead. And we will pick a book. I usually give them a selection of maybe 4 or 5 books, probably 4 books, and they'll have a little vote and see which one they want to do. It's usually something like a Jennifer Killick or an Eveline Jones type. They like the creepy stuff. And we'll read maybe the first 3-4 chapters. We'll do that for 3 or 4 weeks. And then if they want to have a copy of that to carry on for their pupil premium book, then we can order that in for them to keep. And in the past, we've had authors have written notes to the children or recorded short video messages to keep them engaged, and that's really, really lovely. Books at Breakfast is a really lovely thing. This coming term, we're going to start on Friday. We start this Friday. We're going to be judging the information book awards for our Books at Breakfast for the coming few weeks, and then we'll see what they want to do after that. So I love it. I love Books at Breakfast. It's a good thing. We also do, and I'm sure many of you do, lunchtime drop-ins, and I found that has really boosted issues. So if they're coming in once a week as a class and they finish their book partway through the week, they can come back up at lunchtime and swap it for something else. But that's also brilliant for those children who find the playground a bit overwhelming, or they're having a bit of a rough time and they just need a little quiet chill out. You know, they can come in here, and that's absolutely fine. When I first started here, we did have pupil librarians, and then of course we went into lockdown almost as soon as I got here, so lunchtimes became very staggered, and so with that we could no longer have the student librarians. It all got very confusing. So we're back to we'll be recruiting pupil librarians very, very soon, and I can't wait. I'm really looking forward to that. Something that we used to do, and I'm going to reinstate, and I'm going to come on a bit later on how I've managed to get the time to do this. We used to have a session that we used to call our book spa, and we would have a year group and a few children from that year group. It was year 5. They would come in, but in the class quiet reading time, they'd come to the library and they could kick their shoes off, and we'd have lo-fi music, and we'd turn the lights down and just have little twinkly battery operated candles and nice aromatherapy stuff, and there'd be cushions and throws and what have you. And we would have our quiet reading time together in a more relaxed atmosphere, because I think sometimes if those children aren't reading at home as much as we would like, it kind of feels like reading for pleasure time is only at a desk in a classroom, and I want them to realise that they can read anywhere, actually. It doesn't have to be at a desk in a classroom. And then I'm reading with them, so we're modelling reading behaviour, which, as I said, once they see us as readers, they'll just want to read whatever we're reading, and we'll chat about our reading habits and where we like to read and things like that. So I love it. I love Book Spa. That's going to be starting again very, very soon, probably with our year 4s this time. And another thing that I really love doing, we open up the library at the end of every term for staff to come and borrow reading materials for the holidays. So I don't do it at the end of term at the run up to Christmas because everyone's too busy, but before the Easter holiday and before the summer holiday, I'll open up the library a couple of afternoons a week, and we'll have kind of posh squash, fizzy drinks, that kind of thing. And the little cakes and things like that, and I'll put out any new books that we've got, and they can pick from the new books or anything that we've got in the library, really. This summer we issued, I think it was over 50 books to staff, and as I say, somebody brought theirs back today. He actually borrowed The Weather Weaver, not realising it was set in Shetland, and went on holiday to Shetland and read it there, so that was really appropriate. And he's told his class this morning, and they've borrowed it. That's gone out already. So yeah, that's a lovely thing to do, opening up the library for staff. And the other thing I would say is get your PTA on board. I'm sure you do. I'm sure many of you do. So don't just expect them to support you with their fundraising, but maybe support their fundraising as well. So we do in the run up to Christmas, or it's a wintry thing, we do books at bedtime, and we all come back in our pajamas and we have hot chocolate and share stories, and the children can choose. We list which books we're going to be reading, and the children can choose which member of staff they want to go to for a story. And if you're going to do that, you might want to consider maybe getting a local bookshop in as well, so while parents are waiting, they can be buying books for their child, and you could perhaps negotiate and get something back for your school library that way, because I know funds are really, really tight, aren't they? It is hard. So those are the things that have worked particularly well on top of our regular class visits. And a class visit will always have a book chat, and either the teacher will bring their class reading for pleasure book in and finish off a session reading that, or we'll all do quiet reading together. And we'll always start with a book chat so we can talk about what we've read in the previous week. I wanted to talk a little bit about my well-being as a librarian. It's a funny job, I'm sure you'll agree. We're not teaching staff, and we're not support staff in the kind of wider sense of the word. And it's easy to kind of slip through gaps. You're not one thing nor the other. Line management's a little bit different. So I've tried to think of some ways that help me get through week by week, term by term. And I don't want you thinking that I'm lonely in my job, because I'm really not. My colleagues are amazing, but nobody quite gets what a librarian is going through, unless you're another librarian, basically. Usually you're the only one in the school. No one kind of faces the same challenges in school that I face, and likewise that you face, I'm sure. So there's a couple of things I've done to help overcome this. The first thing is I join a thing called Library Lowdown on a Thursday evening on Twitter, which is hosted by Elizabeth Hutchinson and Deborah Perrin. It's on Twitter, and it's a live chat, or should I say X rather than Twitter? You know what I mean? And it's a kind of a staff room style informal chat, and we'll talk about things that have gone well, or things that we found tricky, things we've got coming up in the coming week. And Elizabeth and the other librarians that joined the chat, and Deborah, they're really, really supportive, and they'll come out with some good ideas if there's something that you're struggling with or you want some ideas. And I know that the new term, Elizabeth will be starting that this Thursday on Twitter. So Elizabeth Hutchinson, and it's about 7 o'clock she starts, and it's either half an hour, or if she's going to have more people on the chat, it might go up to anything up to an hour. But yeah, I really look forward to that. That's a good thing to do. And we don't have a local school library service, so we don't have those after school get-togethers where you can chat with fellow librarians, meet fellow librarians. But we do have a local group of librarians, and I know one of them's here because I've seen their name pop up. It's an informal group, and we all interact online and send emails, but we have met socially at launches and things as well. And it's just a really lovely, supportive group, and we know that we're at the end of the phone or at the end of an email, should we have any questions or should we want to run anything by anyone. So if you have got other librarians in your locality, I suggest that you get to know them, even if you're not going to meet them, get to meet them online. It's just a supportive network. And I think I've never worked in a sector like this before, where it's not competitive. Everybody's just so supportive. People do want to help. There are different, Facebook groups and Twitter groups and what have you. So seek those out, because I think they are, it's worth it for your support and your well-being. And CPD, it's obviously some training is statutory, and you've got to do it. Other training that school puts on, I find doesn't particularly help me. It's not relevant to me. So I've started seeking out my own CPD opportunities, and it might be watching book reviews online, Book Blast or something like that, or it might be obviously seeking out the School Library Association courses. The one that I went to in the summer was brilliant on report writing. So seek those opportunities out. You'll need to think about your needs, and I think really you've got to be quite independent. School won't find those opportunities for you. You've got to seek those out, and then they're tailored to your needs, because your needs aren't the same as particularly as other people within the school. So CPD, otherwise how are you going to develop? How are you going to develop as an employee, as a member of the school community, and as a librarian? Something that a colleague said to me once, I did say a year or so ago, I was getting a little bit overwhelmed that all my reading was children's books, and it felt like all my reading was school related, and it felt relentless. And he made a comment. He said, you've got to read some fun adult books of your choosing. He said, because how can you promote reading for pleasure if you're not actually doing it yourself? So remember that. Just, I don't know, even if it's a magazine, read something that is reading for pleasure for yourselves, rather than just make it relentlessly children's books, which are great. And I love reading children's books, but I just got to the point where I thought this is all work and no play. So yeah, read some, I don't know, crime or whatever your thing is, and something else, when I was thinking about today's presentation, and having just done the library timetable for this year, it got me thinking. And I thought, when I started here, I was so eager to please everybody that the timetable, I just let the teachers call the shots on when they wanted to come in. And it was so frustrating, because I was ending up with odd 5-minute slots and 10-minute slots that I couldn't do anything meaningful with. And then it meant the knock-on was that I was staying behind late to try and catch up on everything, because I hadn't had time to do it during the week. So I've now become more vocal, shall we say, on the timetable, and I've said, no, these are the slots that are available. And by doing that, I've managed to factor in a good amount of admin time. So it means I've got time to order those pupil premium books, or do the odd intervention if somebody asks me to, or organise author events, all those sorts of things that you can't do in a 10-minute slot between class visits. So I'm really pleased I've done that. Actually, it's given me more control over my working day and my week, and it just means I can make far better use of my time. It also means that that's how I've managed to fit in the book spa again, that I'm now able to start inviting children in for a relaxed reading time, because I've kind of taken control of that timetable. So those are kind of the main welfare, my well-being type things. So finally, I was just going to talk a bit about the profile of the library. So I did this last week. Ask your senior leadership team at inset days if you can have a 10-minute slot, so that you can explain your expectations and what's going to be happening in the library, and how you expect teaching staff or support staff to support you in your job, because everybody else is getting support, and sometimes we need that support as well. So yeah, I think it's really important that the rest of the school knows what's going on in the library. And I know I've said it before, but we're not a little add-on. We are, kind of integral to the whole school. So make sure you've got the time to get that message across. Provide library reports at the end of every long term and again at the end of the school year, and I make sure those go to SLT and governors, and in those I'll report loans, losses, budget requirements, any kind of engagement we've had, and of course forward planning as well. And what I tend to do, if you get to the end of the term, it's really, you think, crikey, what have I done? What has happened in the last 12 weeks or what have you? So as things happen, I'll jot it in the back of my planner, and then at the end of the term, I can just bash it all out into a document. And I know some people do it differently. Some people have a Word document running all the time, and they just keep adding to that. Whatever works for you. But I think, doing a report for senior leadership team and governors is a really, really good idea. And don't forget, as a librarian, you are in effect a head of department. You are a leader, so you should really be included in the whole school plan. So before creating a development plan, make sure you know who's going to ratify it. If you're going to do a whole school plan, remember it is a living document. It's going to be changing. You're going to be adding to it and taking things out as situations change. Make sure your library mission or your purpose is in that school policy as well. And I was just talking to our deputy head actually, and we were saying that really the library is at the heart. Our plan starts with the library and spreads out from there. So it might be slightly different in your school, but make sure your library mission is in that school plan. What I've done is, now this was the book that I used, Creating a School Library with Impact. I don't know if everybody, can you see that? There's some really top tips in here for putting together your school plan. And of course, School Library Association have got a lot of material as well that you can use. So I think the message really is go to your senior leadership team, share your passion, and remember that you are the expert. That's why they've employed you. So yeah, make sure you just share that passion. And then a couple of other things that we've done to promote the kind of profile of the library. Have a word with year 7 or secondary key stage 3-4 librarians, particularly before your year 6s transition up, to see what their reading lists are. Can you help your year 6s in any way with that transition? Do you have the books? Can they start reading those before they leave you? And maybe you'll even be able to get over to some secondary libraries and have a look at the books they've got available to see how they kind of fit in with what you've got available. Have you got beginning of series and they can carry on reading those when they get there? Are the year 7s having any events that your year 6s could be invited to? I know that we did that at my old school. We took some year 6s to a year 7 event at a secondary, and that was brilliant. That was great. And likewise, if you've got nursery feeder nurseries, maybe you could go to some preschools to do story times so that you've got that connection there. And ask your senior leadership team if you can be involved in open evenings or open days, or when parents are coming around for tours of the school. So yeah, I've taken to speaking at open evenings, and it's great actually. The feedback's been really, really good. So that's really everything that I wanted to say about what happens in our library and the things that work for me and for us. I don't know if anybody's got any questions, or are we going to do those at the end, Helen?
It's entirely up to you and the audience, really. If you've got questions that you want to quickly put in the chat now, we can do that for a couple of seconds. There's just one I want to clarify. There was so much in there. It's just brilliant. That the pupil premium students that get a book, did you say it was every single half term?
Yeah, so they get 6 over the course of the year.
Yeah, so I clarified that for Lisa. Can I just ask how you get that funded? Is that directly from the pupil premium budget?
Yeah, it's directly out of pupil premium money. Yeah. Excellent. And then it's kept very separate to the library budget. So when I submit an order, I'll say to our admin staff, this is out of the pupil premium money, so that it doesn't get crossed over. Yeah.
And it's book ownership, isn't it then? They've got that little collection at home.
They've got their name on it, and they are really excited about it. And sometimes it does, other children might say throughout the school, why aren't I getting picked? Why don't I get picked? But the teaching staff are very, very good that in saying some people might not have books at home or what have you. So it works. And we have so many children that it applies to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Imagine if you have got a lot there. This is a brilliant request. So Janine has said, I don't know whether this is possible, she wants to see your library. So I don't know whether the device that you've got is movable. Can you maybe just, because we can see that, or just point at the brilliant display that you just you talked to us before we started.
That's the one that I've done for, so there's a fan all plugged in, it's so warm in here. That's what I've done for this half term. So it's Pause Some Books, I think I called it. Get your paws on a great book. And then this is our...
sorry, so it's paws on a good book, and they're all
paws,
animals with paws.
Oh, yeah, it's all animals with paws.
Yeah.
And that's our year 6 area. And then this side, I've got sports, hobbies, poetry, short stories. Hold on. What have we got around here?
I love this virtual tour. I know I've sprung this on. Janine's sprung this on us, but I think it's a great idea.
I don't know if you can see that. That's our kind of early chapter books. So for years 2 and 3, because they were getting a bit overwhelmed in choosing fiction.
Yeah. And I can see a castle behind you as well.
That was before I was here. These things hanging on the ceiling. I don't know if you can see them.
Yes, we can.
World Book Day. So there's some books made out of what they call paper lanterns.
Yeah.
You can see various ones there. The one up there, that's the Snow Queen from Sky Song, and then in the corner is, you can see the one that she's turned the wrong way, but that's the Proudest Blue, and we've got Amelia Fang and all sorts. Around this way, we've got all our graphic novels. It's looking a bit packed on here because obviously no classes have been in yet.
They'll soon decimate that, won't they? They'll soon get borrowed.
And then I hope nobody's out there doing PE still. This way, that's some new non-fiction. Yeah. So welcome back, and we've got some more new non-fiction here, and then new fiction goes on the spinner here. And then as we come in the door, that's our, I don't know if you can see that. Can you see that?
Yeah.
It's history books and inspirational people, and then our fiction is all along the back wall, all alphabetical.
Just a brilliant space. Oh, thank you so much for doing that. Yeah, well, but that's the thing, isn't it? You don't have to have much space. You can just be quite creative with what you do have, and good signage. And the students have something for all of them.
It's all picture books because the Key Stage 1 books came up here last year. So that's all Key Stage 1 non-fiction. There's a kind of an old-fashioned Victorian fireplace, and that's all their books in there.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Janine, for asking us to do that, and thank you for doing it.
Off you just to say thank you, because we just thought we'd have a cheeky little ask. Right.
Always worth asking.
I've got some people here with me, so we thought we'd be cheeky and just ask. So thank you very much.
Are you in your library, Janine?
No, we're in my office at the minute. We're not lucky enough to have a librarian. We do have a teaching assistant who we use as a part-time librarian, but we're quite a new school, so it's quite different to see. Sort of like our library is very modern, but there's some good ideas. I think we can still sort of adapt. I think that Sally's given us. That's great. Yeah.
Brilliant. I'd echo that. Lots of brilliant ideas. Yeah, that's what it's all about. You're more than welcome, Janine. Great. There are a few more coming in. Sorry to keep you, Yvonne. We'll be over to you in a second. What are the bad books behind Sally? The bad books?
The ones right over the back there.
The ones in it's for the Pause collection to your other side. Is that your left or your right?
To my left.
No, you're right.
My right.
Yeah.
Those ones.
Next to Varjak Paw, you've got Varjak Paw, and then there's a couple.
Oh, Bad Panda. They are so funny. They're really, really funny. Bad Panda by Swapna Haddo.
Caroline's already recognised them. She's bought Bad Panda. We know they are excellent. Top tips.
They're fantastic. Yeah, really good. Highly recommend those.
Cool. Yeah. Excellent. Well, thanks again so much, Sally. That was just brilliant. And there's lots of top tips. I will get the recording out to everybody so that all of that is there. And I wonder, actually, Sally, whilst you're on, if you wouldn't mind actually sending the notes, because then, you could have sort of a few little notes that we've got to give out, but not a problem if not. I can make some notes and send them out.
Yeah, no, I can make some notes up and send them on to you, Helen.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. Excellent. Well, I think you can see, everybody, why Sally was shortlisted for Primary School Librarian of the Year award. And it was an absolute delight to meet her and all the other shortlisted nominees at the award ceremony, but it was also fantastic to see Authors Abroad there. Authors Abroad sponsor the award, and so they've got a bit of a slot so that they can share with you why they do that, and get some more inspiration. So over to you, Yvonne. Thank you.
Thank you. You've made me miss my days as a librarian, Sally. I suppose you never really leave though, do you? So hello everyone, thanks for joining us here today. I work for Authors Abroad. I've been here 6 years, and before I was with Authors Abroad, all I've ever done is be a librarian. Started when I was 17, did 13 years in public libraries and 6 years as a school librarian at an all-boys secondary school. So yeah, I feel really old now when you say all the numbers out loud. So it's Authors Abroad isn't run by salespeople, it's run by ex-librarians and people who are really passionate about getting young people into reading. What we do as a company is we get children's authors, poets, storytellers and illustrators to visit schools. I'm in charge of all the ones in the UK, but we are in 83 countries, throughout the world. So we are sending people all over to spread the joy of reading. We wanted to sponsor the Primary Librarian of the Year award because it matters. We are speaking to more and more schools where, as budget cuts bite, the librarian is seen as, well, we'll cut that post. It's a nice extra to have. And it's not. It's not a little nice add-on or a luxury. It is an essential and integral part of the school to have that librarian there and someone in that post who is making sure that children have that dedicated, safe, inspirational space, who are helping build those reading habits which develop a lifelong love of reading. It just changes lives. So we really wanted to support that award, and I got to come to a posh dinner and wear my frock and everything. So it was really nice for me personally as well. And poor Sally got sat next to me. She did get to speak to other people. I didn't just corner her and talk about my cats. We did manage to talk about some other stuff as well. So Authors Abroad are we've got about 200 people that we work with. We get about 24 applications by new authors and poets every half term to join our books. We don't say yes to all of them because we want to make sure we haven't got more people than we can manage and to maintain the quality. And I ended up becoming a member of staff at Authors Abroad after I booked an author visit through them, and they thought I was really organised, found out I was local, and they offered me the job a year later. So I have actually used Authors Abroad as a customer, as a librarian, before I came on board and started running the UK team, which does make a really big difference. You've got someone that has been on the other end of that transaction. Getting children's writers, poets, illustrators into schools just makes such a difference. It helps other departments become aware of you if you're having a big school event and you're in the newsletter and everything, because at every school it's probably similar. You've got some that are really fantastic and work in close collaboration with you, and then there's some who just think the library is an extension of English and they just use it as a place to send poorly children or naughty children or someone that's in a detention, and it's not. It's that integral heart of the school, and so it's helping other departments see that and recognise what you're doing by getting those events in the calendar. And it also helps parents if they're getting letters home seeing what the library is doing, because some parents have a bit of an outdated view of the library. It's a bit of a Miss Trunchbull character who's shushing and keeping everyone silent, and libraries aren't like that. And so if parents are seeing these letters home about, this poet is visiting or this author is coming in and these are the books, they can get a more accurate idea of what libraries are about these days. They're really fun. They're varied, and they have such an impact, not just on helping, improve reading for pleasure and stuff. We have authors that go into all sorts of schools. It's, nurseries, primary schools, secondary schools, state, private. We've had special educational needs centres. We've had festivals. We've got pupil referral units. We had one child who was mute after a lot of bullying, and they stood up and read a poem at the end of one of the visits, just because it wasn't one of the grown-ups who knew them. It was someone who was new, fresh, just believed in them. And I had a teacher ringing me in tears, and until they could tell me why, I was a bit worried at first, because I'm like, he's usually really good, why is the teacher crying? So it can absolutely have a massive impact. And it leads to a huge borrowing of books. Like Sally was saying, if they can see someone suggesting a book or modeling that book, an adult, that really helps. But if you've got the person that wrote that book in front of you, who's talking about where they got their inspiration from, it makes such a difference. And there's usually a big waiting list for it. And it can encourage them to try a genre they wouldn't normally consider. A big one is poetry. A lot of kids think it's just like Shakespeare, it's boring, it's got to rhyme. You send a hip hop artist in, or a rapper, you know, someone that is, we've got freestyle world champions going in who have written poetry books. And one of them, a gentleman called Rob Bradley, he gets the students to name 8 random words, and then he just makes up a rap on the spot, including all the words they've suggested. Then there's always a few trying to throw in really difficult words that are hard to rhyme with and stuff, and they haven't beaten him yet. But it breaks those stereotypes, or it makes them think, oh, I would give that a try. Or I was at an all-boys school, and getting them to think of stuff. It's just a good book. It's not a girly book. It's not a book for boys. It's just a really good book. So getting them to read stuff and expand their horizons, or also realizing that graphic novels count, comics count, manga counts. If it's getting you reading and you're getting those words, you know, and you're getting that variety in your vocabulary, it's making an impact. And I mean, librarians are wonderful. It's just a fact, all of them. And they're all promoting reading for pleasure. And the children do have that close bond with the staff that they're seeing every day, but it still does make a difference to have someone new in and someone cool, and not usual sir or miss or the librarian in there just repeating the same message. You've got a rapper, you've got an ex-professional footballer in, you've got a parkour athlete who's backflipped in the hall, and he's telling you reading is cool, and these are the books he likes, and these are the ones he's written, and this is what got him into it. And it does help shift any outdated stereotypes that are still existing, which is brilliant. There's a real thrill of meeting an author or poet and having that chance for the personalized book. Again, touching back on what our wonderful Sally was saying about having that book ownership and the impact it makes. If you can have it and you've bought it directly from the author, they've come to your school and they've signed it and they've written your name in it and they've written a little joke about, you know, the question you asked or something, that's something that's going to be treasured and, you know, kept for a long time. One of our authors is Chris Bradford, who does The Young Samurai and the Bodyguard books, which a lot of you, especially if you do secondary school, will be aware of. He went to a school, it'll have been for his July tour, and one of the teachers queued up to show him one of his old books, and they'd had it signed when they were a pupil, and they'd saved it all these years, and it had helped inspire them to go into teaching themselves, and they wanted to get author visits involved. And Chris was very touched and felt exceptionally old that this person who he'd seen as a young person and a reader themselves was now one of the teachers booking author visits. But they'd remembered it, you know, well over a decade later, if not more. And they can also help with CPD. We've got ex-teachers on our books who are now, you know, professional authors or poets, are just looking at different ways to approach things. One of our poets is often booked for to go to SEN schools, and the engagement he has is more than when the professionals are going in to train, you know, how to work with children with additional needs. So he is now booked to speak at conferences for that, which surprised him because he was just going in and being himself, but looking at a different way to make sure that everyone is involved in literacy. It was really useful. So how we achieve this, we knowing the impact it makes, how we achieve this and the benefits of using an agency, because I've booked authors myself when I was a librarian, and I've booked them through an agency. And if you're using someone like Authors Abroad, you get the personal service. So you always get the same member of staff who knows you, knows your school, knows your likes and dislikes. So unless someone's off sick or something. So there's a lot of people who weren't even aware they were using Authors Abroad. They're like, oh, I just talked to Yvonne. I'm like, yeah, but it's not, I'm not a one-woman band. But you know when they started their job, I know their pets' names, I know when they've been on maternity leave, or I know when they've welcomed grandchildren. I know that this author went down really well with their pupils. That one the pupils liked, but there was a personality clash with the librarian. We can recommend great people that are tailored to you. We've got that ongoing working relationship, which saves you a lot of hassle rather than starting from scratch each time and searching through a list of names. And a key thing I'd like to say is it's brilliant getting the big names in and, you know, people that their books are flying off the shelves and everything. But a really key thing what we do is encourage school librarians or teachers who are booking author visits to take a chance on people who you haven't necessarily heard of them as much, because we have some authors who make a living from writing. Their books are so popular and selling so well, and they're invited to so many festivals that is their livelihood, and they will do a few school visits a year, you know, to be able to see the readers, and they have fun. But we have some who day in, day out, you know, 3 or 4 days a week all year round, they're visiting schools. And that is where they make their money, and they have the personality, and they're used to dealing with the big crowds, and they're really good at engaging the reluctant readers, and they know how to work with an entire school at once and tailor it. And we've had a lot of people take a chance on, oh, well, I haven't heard of him or her, but if you suggest them, and then rung up and said it's the best visit I've ever had. Yeah, that's their job. You know, although they are a very good writer, their main income is from being impressive at standing in front of a school and being with the teachers all day. And if you're talking to an agency, we can be brutally honest. I've had a few times where I've said to people, they're a really good author. The children will love them. They're a bit last minute. They're not very good with their admin. As a super organized person, can you cope with that, you know, laid back, or are you going to be tearing your hair out? And one said, no, I'll probably bludgeon them with a dictionary. I need someone organized. I run a tight ship. And so I was able to find someone that was really good at writing workshops and a good personality match for the librarian. And it's our reputation on the line. We have to find good people, otherwise you wouldn't use us next year. So you've almost got that guarantee. There's no such thing as you getting someone who's having an off day, and because for that author, if heaven forbid it didn't work out, that school just won't hire them again. We need to make sure that we're rebooking that school every year if possible. So we have to find the absolute best match. So we know what suits your school. We know all the authors and poets, their locations. We know who's on tour. We know who usually lives up in Yorkshire, but actually is down visiting their mum in Essex for, you know, a week in October. So we can actually get you while they've already got the train fare covered or whatever. We've got all that inside knowledge. So it's a quick one-stop shop instead of you researching and getting lists and lists and emailing dozens of authors and waiting for responses. And as someone who works with 200 of them, some are super organized and some do have that creative mindset. They're really good at writing and rubbish at life admin. And we're always chasing them and having to make sure. I mean, I'm booking the hotels and the trains for a lot of these authors. They're either, some of them a little bit scatty, or they're really popular and they're in a school delivering a visit all day, so they can't talk to you while you're in your school because they're on the road, they're on the train, they're in an assembly themselves. So talking to an agency means we can give you all the answers straight away. We already know who's free, we've got their diaries, we know who would suit you, and we're there during office hours, so you're getting that quick response. And we can take all the stress out of it for you. We can organise the book sales too if you want. We can arrange it online for cashless, post event orders, create the letter for you, because we know librarians are really busy and there are a few who are just librarians these days. A lot have many other duties in their job description, or sometimes it is a teacher who's just been asked to organise an author visit, and they're mainly teaching English, or we've even had geography teachers that are headmaster and they've got a lot on the plate. So we try to take as much of the hassle out of it as possible for you and do everything we can. I've never met any school librarian or teacher who wouldn't like an author visit. The only thing is, the biggest barrier is obviously cost. So we are here managing that balance between authors, some of whom are, freelance artists who are just above the breadline, and schools who, schools have to watch every penny these days and have to account for everything and justify it. So we always know who's on sale. You can only afford half a day. Okay, we know another school nearby. We'll see if they can take the other half day. And we're always looking at ways to make sure that while the authors aren't being taken advantage of, because you do get asked more frequently than you'd realise, can you come and work for free if we give you a good book review? And the authors are like, no, I can't be the only one in the room not getting paid. But schools have to watch absolutely every single penny. So we're there just to try and make sure both sides are being treated fairly and getting the absolute best outcome. We often run sales, flash sales, competitions. We've given away free virtual visits in the last few years with Stephen Davis, Carl Nova, Catherine Evans, and Kev Payne did one. So we are always trying to see what can we do to help. We have a newsletter that comes out for totally free after each school holiday. And the latest one was released just last week. And in it, there's a free page special on tips on how to afford it, getting help from other departments, teaming up with PTAs, looking at help from parents. If you are in a school where parents buy a lot of books, you can ask us, look, if we guarantee you an order of 50 books, is there any chance that the author can do us a deal on the visit fee? We can always look into that, or we can sell you the books at less than the RRP and allow you to sell them at the RRP to parents. So you're making £1 or £2 a book if you are in an area where parents have access to the funds and would be buying the books anyway. Where we can, we team up with other organisations and get them to subsidise visits. We've worked this really, really well with the other department that I run, which is our poetry slams. And they are cheaper than author visits because they're quite specialised and they run at set times of year. So if you're booking an author visit, you say who you want, when you want them, and it gets booked in bespoke, as long as that person's available. I'm just going to put that play out there on the internet. Please don't come and insert a huge name of a really big poet or a really big author and ask if they can pop in for World Book Day like a week before it. We have some of our acts are booked up for World Book Day 2026. I think Chris Bradford is now booked for. So it's just a case of the sooner you act, the more choice we can give you. You know, there's no cancellation, there's no deposits, there's no financial risk at all for booking early. Just please, if at all possible, be as organised as you can be, which I know is usually not the librarians, it's usually waiting on the permission from the SLT to do it. But with the poetry slams, that's for years 5, 6, 7, 8. Try not to sing steps like I always do in the office. And they get a day in school with a dedicated poet teaching them all about slam poetry. They're in teams of up to 6. You pick a winning team and they get to perform at a local theatre. So we book a theatre for an evening. It's either March or April, depending on which part of the country you're in. And these, we run somewhere it's £400 to take part in this. Up in Calderdale, where we've managed to get funding, it's £250 per school to take part, and you can have 2 year groups take part. And at least 6 of them are going to go on an actual theatre and perform on the stage. So yeah, do check it out because it's a wonderful way to make sure you've got that person visiting your school, inspiring students. And with the poetry slam, it's a bit different to author visits because you're building up the confidence more and the teamwork, and they've got that end destination. They get to win and go on perform at a stage and be judged by. We get a lot of poets from all over coming and helping us out with that. Some really big names come and donate their evenings for free to help out with our poetry slams, which is brilliant. And another thing is, obviously, if you're on here, you're obviously tech savvy, virtual visits. You can't really place an author coming into school and being able to, sign the book or high five the children and stuff. But if it is virtual, you can just book an hour at a time. You're not having to commit to a half day or a full day. And it doesn't matter if the author lives at the opposite end of the country to you. You've got no travel cost to pay whatsoever. We've also got another department that is called Caboodle Classrooms, which we have launched to try help schools that are having to really watch their budgets. And it's all online pre-recorded videos. There is 10 released a year because it's every month except for August and December. And it's got some really big names on. Michael Rosen was released at the start of this month with us. And I think it's a maximum £45 a month to be able to see all these huge names. We've got one for ages 3 to 6, 7 to 11, and 11 plus. They all come with teacher notes, which were written by the CLPE. So you've got lesson plans. You can watch these videos as many times as you want. It's not, you've got to be at the computer at a set time, or if one class doesn't have their library lesson at the same time as another, you can keep watching whenever you want. And they're up for about 3 months at a time because there's a month where they're live and there's 2 months in the archive. And we've got AF Harold and Carl Nova on there. And as I said, we've just had Michael Rosen this month. And trying to think Yes, so we've got some really big, SF Said, that's who I knew was the other big one because I saw the books on Sally's display. And we're giving people totally free access to that until the end of September. If you just want a login to have a nosy around, see the quality of the videos, see what the teaching notes are like, and have something to show your SLT so they can decide whether or not it is worth funding. And I think I saw in the chat that we are offering discounts to SLA members as well as part of our sponsorship deal with this. So that's what we do and why we do it. We know the impact of having a visitor in school. We know it makes such a big impact on the library's reputation. The young people have a lot of fun. They treasure those books. And I'm really lucky that I really, really enjoy my job because all day I'm getting to speak to authors and poets and enthusiastic librarians and play matchmaker. So I will pop my email address in the chat if anyone has any questions, because I know I speak quite fast, especially when there's a time limit. If you want to sign up for the free newsletter, ask about the free trial, actually, one of my favourite authors ever was due to go overseas for National Poetry Day and they've had to postpone. So I've got an offer that is suitable for primary schools, free on National Poetry Day, even though it is coming up 5th of October, the first Thursday in October this time. So yes, thank you very much for giving me the chance to have a little chat.
Thank you, Yvonne. Massive thank you. You know, you said it's made you want to go back to your school library listening to Sally. Listening to you has made me want to do an author visit. I want to get
Everyone should have an author visit. If you can afford it, there was no reason not to. And we've managed to get them down to, for some people, if it's just online, I can get it for £150 if it's virtual.
Yeah. And there's so many top tips to help it happen. So any of those barriers, you know, you can work with a school to overcome, which is just great. So Lizzie said she's going to be in touch this week with you. So
really glad that my boss has an all-inclusive phone package, because as they said, they took a gamble on me. I was the only one who wasn't a salesperson at that time, and they just took a librarian, and they couldn't believe how much I talk. I'm like, people ringing up are interested in books, of course we're going to talk. And I'm like, oh, when you did the Carnegie scheme, did you do that? And I had this idea. And someone says, did you even offer them anything? I'm like, no, but I've made a friend, and when they can afford an offer, they're going to come to me and book Carl Nova or whatever.
Absolutely. It's knowing what's available. I say it might not be next week. It'll be, you know, it could be some other time. But I've got some questions, practicalities about, yes, Heather, the links that as both of you were talking, I was just sort of frantically sharing links for things so that people had got it ready.
Oh, you're very quick when you're typing.
So I will share those with the video. And brilliant. Yeah, you've got your email as well there, Yvonne, so people can contact her. So few last minutes. If anyone's got any more questions, then here's your opportunity. But while we're just waiting to see if anybody has, another huge thank you. You guys are awesome. So good. I'm sort of fired up for the whole academic year now. That's what we want out of a first webinar back, don't we? We want to be inspired. That's what we'd build it as. And it's just great to hear everything. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Helen. It's a real privilege to talk to everyone.
I don't know where we're all based, but if I was more southerly, I'd tell you I'd be coming around to your library for the hot chocolate and pyjama read, Sally. Yeah. That sounds amazing.
It is dreamy. It is dreamy.
Yeah.
That does sound lovely. Right. Well, I don't think there's anything else in the chat, but if for the people who have booked on, you've got questions that occur to you later, then don't hesitate to contact me. I could put my email in there. There's also, for members, the info@sla.org.uk, where you can ask us absolutely anything. You know, if you need more ideas or more contacts or whatever it is, you know, Sally was talking about branches, which is brilliant, you know, networking with people locally. There's more of these sessions coming up in our events. We try and do online member meetups so that you've got chance like this to chat to each other, even if you can't get together in person. So do keep in touch. Thank you all for taking the time to come today. Really appreciate it after what I'm sure is a super busy few weeks at start of term. So we appreciate you coming today. Thank you so much. And we'll see you at a session soon. Thanks again. Bye.
Thanks. Bye. Bye.